Hi, it's Maija here with my favorite reads of 2018. I'm gonna start with the things that I gave 5 stars or 4.5 stars to. I'm pretty strict with my 5 stars, so I only gave 2 things 5 stars in 2018. The first 5-star thing that I read was The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and this is a classic horror short story about a woman who is prescribed the rest cure. She basically, I think, has postpartum depression, and the doctor and her husband prescribe this rest cure for her. So she basically can just sit or lie down in this one room with yellow wallpaper, and she isn't allowed to do anything. Like, it's too much if she writes something. And the author herself had experience with this rest cure, and that is why she wrote this story. I especially like the very strong claustrophobic atmosphere that the book has, and the 5 stars is just for the title story. There's 2 other stories in the small booklet that I have, The Rocking Chair and Old Water, and those didn't get 5 stars, but the Yellow Wallpaper, definite 5 stars from me. The other 5-star read was a comic, and that was Beneath the Dead Oak Tree by Emily Carroll. This is a short, again horror, short comic about these fox creatures at this ball, and the man is trying to get the woman to meet him beneath the dead oak tree. And I just love this. It strikes all my buttons. It's had this fairy tale-ish feel, but also darkness and this gothic lusciousness and horror. In true Emily Carroll fashion, it has striking, beautiful colors. I don't know if they show up that well on camera, but the art is just striking. The colors are beautiful, and like Emily Carroll often does, it is written in verse. Emily Carroll has a new comic coming out this year, and I'm really looking forward to it. Now let's move on to my 4.5 stars, and the first of those is Phantom Pains by Michelle Baker, which is my current favorite urban fantasy series. It's very fast-paced, highly readable. I really like it. This is the second book. The first book is called Borderline, and the series is called The Arcadia Project. And this continues the story of Millie, who has borderline personality disorder. The author also has the same disorder. And in the first book, Millie was recruited into this organization that governs the travel between our world and fairy, and this particular branch of the organization is set in Los Angeles, so there's a lot of like entertainment industry stuff. It has a lot of magic, fairies, and a very interesting protagonist. And this book was even better than the first. There was this story element that I really liked that was revealed in this book, having to do with the magic of the world, and that will have major repercussions, and I can't wait to pick up the third book. The second 4.5-star read is quite unusual for me. It's a non-fiction book, and that is The Black Count, Glory, Revolution, Betrayal, and the Real Count of Monte Cristo by Tom Rice. And this is the story of the author Alexandre Dumas' father, Alex Dumas, who was a black man, an aristocratic black man, who rose in the ranks in the military and commanded armies around the time of the French Revolution. It's also about race in that time in France, and how, of course, France had slaves in the colonies, but they like to title themselves the land of the free on French soil. So it's a great look into this one particular man, but also into the French Revolution and race in historical France. This is also very readable. The author has taken all the, do you call them citations? Like the footnotes out of the text. So instead, all the references are at the back in the notes section. It does have the references, so it goes chapter by chapter at the end and says the page and where that particular thing comes from research, but it isn't peppered throughout the text, so it's very easy to read. The last of my 4.5-star reads is Homunculus by Joe Sparrow, which is a science fiction comic. It's about this AI. The main character is the AI, who is this box, and it is from their point of from its point of view. It starts with the AI waking up and seeing the scientist that created it. So the whole comic is from the AI's point of view. It is so emotional. It has all the feels which I wasn't expecting from a little science fiction comic. What is especially well done in this is the passage of time. It's just so beautifully and impactfully done. Now I'm moving on to my favorites out of the 4-star books that I read, and the first of those is The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Goss. This book was so relevant to my interest. It's like, how many classic gothic horror characters can you include or reference in one novel? I remember I read about 100 pages of this in one go, which is very rare for me. This tells about a group of young women. There's Mary Jekyll and Diana Hyde, the daughters of Jekyll and Hyde. There's Beatrice Rappaccini from Rappaccini's daughter, Catherine Moreau from The Island of Dr. Moreau, and Justin Frankenstein from Frankenstein. But there are also numerous side characters and references to other literary figures. So together these girls form a group and they are sort of solving murders, but the plot wasn't the most important part of this for me. It was the stories of the girls themselves, and I like that there was a strong focus on their stories. So whenever a new character, new person was introduced into this group, we got a chapter on their backstory, and those were really interesting to me. They were like my favorite part of it. I also liked how it was obvious that the characters themselves were writing the book, like Mary Jekyll was the main author, and then the other girls would interrupt her and go like, this isn't how it went, give their own interjections or write their own parts. At first, when this happened for the first time, I didn't know what to think of it, but I quickly grew to like it a lot. John Watson and Sherlock Holmes are also quite big side characters in this book, and pretty much the only thing that I didn't like about this was that I really don't like when Sherlock Holmes is used as a romantic interest. But yeah, otherwise this was great, and I really need to get the second book. Next I want to talk about Clockwork Boys and the Wonder Engine by T. Kingfisher, aka Ursula Vernon. This is a high fantasy adventure duology called The Clocktor War. This tells about a group of criminals who are sent on this mission to a neighboring city-state in order to find out how these clockwork soldiers, these unstoppable monsters, are made. They don't really have a choice in this. They are apprehended criminals. So the city-state is using these Clocktor creations in war, and they just rampage through the countries and are unstoppable. This has all the wit and charisma of Ursula Vernon's other writing. I pretty much pick up everything that she writes, at least under the name T. Kingfisher, which is her writing for adults. I just love her work. The main characters are this forger called Slade and a former paladin who went on a murderous rampage called Caliban, and they are the point of view characters. There's also an assassin called Brenner. These are the criminals. They are joined by a scholar called Learned Edmund, who is sent with them basically so that he can make sense out of the notes of the creators of the clockwork creatures. And then there's also this badger-like creature called a gnoll who joins the group. While this is this traditional fantasy adventure quest sort of story, it has this fresh feel and it's really fun. And also the take on the characters is really fun. There's a lot of banter in this. There was one very random chapter right at the end of this first book that I didn't really care for, but that was pretty much all of my gripes. Oh, although I didn't like Learned Edmund at start because he comes from this very misogynistic brotherhood. He was insufferable at the beginning. All in all, I loved the characters, I loved the banter. It was always witty and always fun, but it had a great plot also. Then my biggest surprise of the year, biggest surprise on this list, was Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, which is this new weird science fiction novel that I really didn't think that I would like this much. It's about a group of scientists who go on this 12th expedition to this Area X, which is this cut out area that nature has taken over, and weird stuff happens there basically. I'm sure that the writing style of this won't work for everyone, but it absolutely captured me and kept me in its atmosphere and in its grip, and I would have liked to read this book like in one sitting, in one go, if I had had the time. As it went, I did read half of the book in one go when I started. Everything is very mysterious and very weird, and I like that not like answers are given to everything. And this also works perfectly as a standalone, which I enjoyed. And by the way, the movie is very different. Next on my favorite list are two science fiction novellas, and those are All Systems Red and Artificial Condition by Martha Wells. These are the first and second book in the Murderbot Diaries novella series. I did also read the third book, Rogue Protocol, in 2018, but these two were my favorites. Murderbot is such a great character. It's this self-aware security unit android who just really would like to be left alone and basically watch TV, watch its shows in peace and not be bothered, but it is accompanying this group of human scientists on their mission. The character of Murderbot is where these novellas shine, but I also really like the relationship between Murderbot and the spaceship it calls Art in the second novella. I don't actually care about any of the human characters in these novellas that much, but I'm all for following the adventures of this antisocial, socially anxious, sarcastic bot. who might actually care more for people than it likes to think. I'd also like to mention Robin Hobb's The Dragon Keeper, which is the first book in the Rainwild Chronicles, even though I think I will like the rest of the books better than this first one, because this was very much an introduction book. And I, as always, really like the character work that Robin Hobb does. Her characters are always so good. This is about this group of dragons in the Rainwilds. They have been too short a time in their cocoons, so when they are born they have difficulties, as for example they can't fly, and these people who live near them have given a promise to this dragon that they will essentially feed them, but they are a huge strain on the people, and the dragons decide that they are gonna go on an expedition. They're gonna go and try to find this historical, mythical city that they have ancestral memories of. They want to set on this expedition, but they also want some dragon keepers to come with them, sort of feed them, groom them, everything like that. This book was basically just getting everyone to come and join the expedition. And my favorite characters in this were Alice and Cedric, and there's also dragon characters, the dragon keeper character, who are point of view characters, and there was also a ship captain, but I really liked Alice and Cedric, and these two are my favorite characters, especially Cedric, because I can see him being the character who, in true Robin Hobb fashion, makes some pretty bad decisions, and I want to see how that goes for him. I also continue to enjoy the fantasy comic series Monstrous. I just really love seeing the relationship develop between the main character, who is this girl called Maija Halfwolf, and the monster god who is living inside her. So this series just keeps getting better, the history and the world keep getting bigger, the cool female characters keep getting more and more numerous and more cool. The art is beautiful in this gothic steampunk manga sort of mix way. What can I say? I just really enjoy this. And then I'd also like to mention two manga series that I finished in 2018. I gave both of these 4 stars. All of the volumes got between 3 and 5 stars from me. First I'm gonna mention Princess Jellyfish by Akiko Higashimura. I read these in the 2-in-1 omnibuses. Like I said, these volumes got between 3 and 5 stars, and the one that got 5 stars was volume 5. And this is about this group of geek women living in this one house, and in order to save their house they start a fashion line. But what I really like about it is the relationship between the geek women. I love them all, and I also really like the relationship between the 2 brothers in this series. There are few and far between scenes between the 2 of them, but they are so good when the scenes are there. Then the other series was Hiromu Arakawa's Full Metal Alchemist. These were also between 3 and 5 stars. I gave volume 11 5 stars. That was the one that made me cry. Almost made me cry on a bus, but I noticed that this was getting to a really emotional place, so I stopped reading it at the bus and read it at home, and yeah, it was really emotional. It was the one where Ed goes visit home and learns some new truths about some old baggage. But this is a fantasy manga where the magic is alchemy. That's about these 2 brothers, Edward and Alphonse Elric, who they're basically trying to get Al's body back, because they did something when they were kids, and now Al's soul is living in this suit of armor, an empty suit of armor. But there's a lot of characters and a lot of stuff going on here, so I'm not gonna go all into that. I didn't really like I wasn't into the final volumes as much as I was into the journey to there. And finally, I'd like to give out some brief awards, like special mentions. First, some authors that I now feel that I want to read all of their work, add them to my list of authors whose work I want to read, everything that they write, and those would be Theodora Goss and Octavia Cade. I read The Don't Girls by Octavia Cade. That's a novella in 2018, and even though it wasn't my favorite, I've read 2 things from her, and both of them have been really intriguing and really fascinating and different from other things that I read. So I want to read everything by Octavia Cade and everything by Theodora Goss. Then favorite art I would give to Beneath the Dead Oak Tree. Emily Carroll's one of my favorites, but then also to The Wicked and the Divine. I really love Jane McKelvey's artwork, and I also love Matt Wilson's colors in this series. I'm desperately trying to find some art that isn't a spoiler from this volume. This is volume 7. Here's like an issue cover, but I can't really show any of the art because I think everything in this is a spoiler for the past volumes. My favorite protagonist of the year was definitely Murderbot, and my favorite side characters were the group of geek women from Princess Jellyfish. I love them all, but I especially have a soft spot for Maija. Then something that wouldn't normally think of giving my favorite romantic interest was Shu from Princess Jellyfish. I just loved all the scenes between Tsukimi and Shu, it just made me giggle. Then my favorite relationship, I would give them to the main characters from The Girl from the Other Side. They have this guardian-child relationship that is very heartwarming. And then I would also like to give it to the friendship developing between Maija and the demon god inside her, whose name I have forgotten, from Monstrous. This is also quite different for me, but I'd like to give a shout out to a favorite short story that I read in 2018. And I would like to mention Olympia's Ghost by Sofia Samatar, which was collected in Tender Stories, her short story collection. That just introduced me to the story of The Sandman by E.T.A. Hoffmann, which I didn't know about before. The story itself, I don't think I understood everything about it because I didn't know the original work, but it inspired me to go and read the original work, which was quite interesting as well. And then I went on and read a Finnish horror novel that was also inspired by the same short story. So Olympia's Ghost really gave me a lot of other stuff to read in 2018. I would like to go back and reread the short story. Maybe I would get more out of it this time. Funniest read would go to Delicious in Dungeon by Ryoko Kui, which is this manga series where this group of adventurers cook and eat the monsters that they kill. It's ridiculous. And then finally a tearjerker super emotional read award would go to Homunculus by Joe Sparrow, and also volume 11 of Full Metal Alchemist that I mentioned. So those were my favorite reads of 2018. Let me know if you have also read any of these, and let me know if you have done your own video of 2018 favorites, and I will go and watch that. But that's all from me for now, and I will see you in my next video.